In today's episode, we're going to hear all about Richard Allen's interview with the Indiana State Police. It's pretty interesting what occurred. We're not going to see the video yet, but we get to hear all about the interview and the interesting techniques that were used to conduct that interview. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. Let me switch over to the full screen. How are you? Crafting and Crime Daily. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Before I get into it, I do want to say that this is the same shirt I've had on now for 3 videos. I recorded them all in the same day. And make sure you didn't miss any of them. I just want you to this is day 8 of the testimony. So I also did day 7 and day 6. So make sure you go back and take a look at those. One of them is about 15 or 20 minutes, and the other one is about a half an hour. I'm trying not to give you too much information at one time, but they're having court on Saturdays because the jury is sequestered. So what happened on Saturday? So we have Officer Holman on the stand, and he's going to be talking about the interview that he conducted. And he uses what is known as the read technique, which is very much not defense attorneys hate it, absolutely hate it, and get so pissed off when this happens to their clients, because the officers, they'll lure you down to the station and then get you into a room and start questioning you. We saw it in the Sarah Boone case. She wanted to get her phone back. They're like, oh, come on down. I'm pregnant. Can you come get it? She goes. She ends up getting arrested. Ends up in a room, questioned, she gets arrested. Well, same thing here with Richard Allen. He wanted to get his car back. It had been confiscated during the search of his home. He goes, they tell him, come on down, we'll give you your car back, and some other things. So he and his wife go down there, and he ends up in an interrogation room. Yeah. And this guy is using the read technique. And what that technique does is it starts out with a presumption that the person has committed the crime. Yep. It's a presumptive positive. You presume that they're guilty. Presumptive guilty kind of technique. And you are allowed to lie. Police are allowed to lie to you. There's no law against it. But it's very much not in favor anymore. They don't use it a lot anymore. Some do, some don't. But it's just not a good technique. It really, really isn't. So you establish a rapport with the person. And what he did was he put Richard Allen in a room, started talking about their military background that they had in common, good old boys, and then he lets into him, starts telling him lies. So we have a report from the lab saying that your gun matched a round found 6 inches from the dead girl's body. Really? No. There's some, I think some of the spectators, I've heard different things from different podcasters. I think some of them felt like these officers really believed what this woman from yesterday said that did this forensic, God, what do you call it? Let me go back. Forensic firearms examiner. They believed, okay, this bullet came from Richard Allen's gun. There you go. They thought it was a done deal. They thought this came from his gun. They didn't realize that this is perhaps junk science and very subjective. But in any case, Richard Allen denied it. He says, I can't explain how a bullet that cycled through my weapon, got out there. I can't explain it. So he did say that when he's told him, you were on the trail that day. Yes, I've told you that I was on the trail that day. You were wearing such and such. Yes, I told you what I was wearing that day. Did you carry a gun? No, I don't carry the gun. When he does carry the gun, he carries it in a holster, and he did carry it with a round in the chamber. But if you think about it now, if you're going to buy what Detective Mullins said he heard on the video the gun cocking, which means there wasn't a round in the chamber of whoever kidnapped these girls, if that's what he was hearing. Well, Richard Allen says, when I carry my gun, yes, I have a round in the chamber. Okay. So as this interview is going on, during this interview, he probably denied having committed the murder 25 times. Emphatically, I had nothing to do with this. I didn't do any of this. And he couldn't explain this bullet. But as the interview wears on, his demeanor is starting to change. He's not friendly anymore. He's getting agitated. And that's coming out in what he's saying and the language that he's using. So this officer, one of the techniques is according to this officer, one of the techniques is you just match their level of agitation. And he starts cursing back at him. Yeah. Apparently there is video of this interrogation. Some of the video is inexplicably missing, like the part where you reminded him of his Miranda rights. Missing. Yeah. And I believe that the state did not want to put this video in, or they wouldn't be asking this guy to explain every single thing that happened in the interview. We would just get to see it. That's what usually happens in these cases. Nope, we haven't seen it. So at one point, the defense says, well, we're going to offer these videos into evidence of the interrogation, and they go sidebar. When they came back from sidebar, the judge says, we are going to see the videos, but it's not going to be right now. It'll be later on. Okay. So one of the questions that he was asked is, what did you mean when you were saying that your life was over? Because, let me get the quote. Let me find the exact quote. It doesn't matter. It's over. He said that a few times while they were searching his house. He also said it apparently in the back of a vehicle, a police vehicle, on some occasion, that there was no video of him actually saying that. There happened to be no video in this particular car, even though other cars that he rode in, other police vehicles he rode in, there were camera footage of him in the back of that car, but not this particular one where he said that particular statement. But he did ask him, what did you mean by that? Your life is over. Well, he says, it's out there. You've talked to all my neighbors. You've talked to all my friends. You've talked to everybody at my work. Everybody thinks I did this. My life is over. And he's not wrong. It's never going to be the same. The damage is done. Damage is done, he says. You've done the damage. I can't go back and unring that clock or unring that bell. So that's what he meant by that. Even though at this point, this officer says, no, we hadn't announced any arrest. He wasn't under arrest. He was never under arrest during this interrogation. Free to leave. Could have left anytime he wanted. Really? He's behind locked doors. Not the interrogation room, but he would have to leave the interrogation room and walk through other locked doors to get out of the police station. And, the guy would give him breaks. As he got more and more agitated, he would offer him, hey, can I get you some water? Can I, want to have a cigarette? Because he's a smoker. How about a cigarette? This is all part of the technique. Even though you're not under arrest, we're going to tell you when you can drink, when you can have a cigarette, when you can talk to your wife. Yeah. At one point, they left the room and said, we're going to give you a few minutes to talk to your wife, because his wife was in the room. And she says, honey, you can get an attorney. I wish she had. Oh, my God. So they took a break. He goes out, smokes a cigarette. So one of the lies that he's told him is that the witnesses, there's witnesses who can ID you. They've identified you, Richard, as being, I was out there. I was out there, But there are witnesses that can identify that it's your voice on the video of the kidnapping. Guys, down the hill, we've got experts that are going to say that's you. This was a lie. They don't. And he denied murdering these girls. He told them, he says, listen, I have mental health issues. I've got a history of depression and anxiety. So his demeanor continued to change throughout the interview, kept getting more and more agitated. He was accused of murdering these girls 20 to 25 times. He denied contacting or knowing Abby or Libby. I don't know these girls. I've never contacted, and they don't have any contact or knowledge or evidence that either ever contacted each other. There's no evidence of it, none. So at one point, he became very confrontational during the interview, and he said, and I'm going to use some bad language here, I didn't fucking do this. I didn't fucking do it. So he decides he's going to match his confrontational level and starts yelling at him and cursing and saying, I know you fucking did it. Okay. And I wrote down in my notes, where is this video? I want to see the video. Yeah. He did not. He was asked, did you loan your gun out? Did you loan the gun? Did you loan out your jacket? He says, no, it's my stuff. It's my gun. It's my jacket. I didn't loan it to anybody. He says, I don't use that gun very often. But no, I didn't loan it to anybody. He had no explanation for the bullet having cycled through his gun. I don't know how that happened. I don't know how that got onto the scene. No idea. When he was left alone with his wife, she said, you can ask for a lawyer. And he said, just protect yourself and don't worry about me. All right. So he claimed that based on his training and education, Officer Holman says, he's able to detect when a suspect is being deceptive. And he felt like Richard Allen was being deceptive. How so? What was he doing that made you think he was being deceptive? Did you pick up on any clues that he was being deceptive? He goes, yeah, I was touching his face, looking down or away. And he goes, well, how do you know these things? Where did you learn that? He goes, I don't remember where I learned it. Someone told me that. Oh, okay. So the reason those two questions actually came from the defense, not the prosecution, because at this point, the defense asked the judge, said, listen, I think there's a lack of foundation for him to be offering these opinions about whether he's being deceptive or not. Can I ask him a few questions? It's called voir dire. Can I voir dire the witness? And so the judge allowed him to do that, even though it wasn't his time to cross-examine him. He gets up, and that's when he asks, what are the signs of somebody being deceptive? Touching your face, looking down, looking away. But he couldn't tell where he learned what were the signs of deception. So the objection was that there's no foundation for this opinion, but the judge overruled it and went ahead and let him give this opinion. Not making eye contact. That was another one he said, when he doesn't make eye contact. Well, if someone is, questioning you for hours, you're not going to sit and stare at them like this for the entire time. You're not going to make eye contact the entire time that they're asking you questions. You're going to look away. You're going to touch. I do it. I'm not being deceptive, though. So Richard Allen was not maintaining eye contact. He was looking down. He was touching his face. And he was making comments that stood out. Really, what comments were those? Your wife and I, we don't think you're a bad guy. So his comment was, well, what kind of a good guy would murder two young girls? And several times Richard Allen during this interview said, I'm done. I'm done. Which essentially means the interview's over. Your interrogation is over. But he kept questioning him. Kept on questioning him. And at one point, he tells the officer, hey, you know what? If you've got all this evidence against me, just take your evidence and go ahead and arrest me. So Holman leaves the room and he goes out and he talks to his colleagues and he comes back and he arrests them. Okay. He felt like the gun, well, a couple of things, the gun and the fact that the cell phone was not missing. The cell phone part, the fact that they searched his home, they found 17 cell phones and not one of them was the one during this time frame that the MEID number was taken down by the conservation officer was not there. So that was part of the affidavit in support of getting the search warrant of his house. That coupled with the gun, the junk science, is what they have against Richard Allen. That's it, folks. That is it. Except that he confessed to the murder later on. After he was in solitary confinement for 4 months in prison, not in jail, hadn't been convicted, but they shipped him to prison and put him in solitary confinement for 4 months until his mental status began to deteriorate and he started confessing. After that, he was taken out of solitary confinement and his mental status started improving and he again started denying having done this. So I'm interested to hear what these confessions were. I've heard that one of them is that he said he shot them. Well, they weren't shot. They were stabbed. And so on cross-examination, the attorney gets up and brilliantly, I might add, he says, I saw you looking down quite a bit during your testimony. Were you being deceptive? I love that question. Love that question. Oh my God. And he asked, did you remind him of his Miranda rights? Oh, yes. Yes, I did. Where's the tape? Where's that on the tape? It's not in the transcript. Where is it? Well, we were having issues with the video. So apparently there are a lot of witness interviews that were videotaped, and those are all missing. Something was happening with their video that I guess they couldn't afford to get a technician in to fix it or something. I don't know. Anyway, it worked during the rest of the interview, but not during the portion of time where he said, remind you of his Miranda rights. He said, well, really the only thing wrong with it is that there was a delay in when it would start. So I said I did all that before the video started. When we first walked into the room, because that didn't get caught on the video. Oh, okay. Okay. So it was at this point that the defense asked to move the videos into evidence, and they went sidebar, and she said it'll be played later on. But it's not going to be admitted by the state. The state doesn't want people to see this video. I don't know why. What are we hiding? I've never seen a prosecution like this. Honest to God. I don't know what's going on up there in Indiana. I do not know, but somebody needs to look into it. It's crazy. So the defense has said they're going to show the videos, and the reason, I guess there was a ruling to keep the videos out, but when this witness started talking about how his demeanor was changing, that's something you can't really express verbally. You have to see it. So at that point, the door is opened. We need to see the videos. So we're going to see the videos probably during the defense's case in chief. Excuse me. I think I'm getting sick. I hope not, but it kind of feels that way. So he asked him, and he said, so what were the lies that you told Richard Allen during this interview? And he said, well, it was a couple. He said, I told them that other investigators wanted to look into him. I'm sorry, wanted to lock him up and throw away the key. Other investigators want to lock you up and throw away the key. There's witnesses that saw him on the trail, and that there's experts that said it was his voice. And now this is more than two, but he told him the death penalty's on the table. Death penalty's on the table. I don't think it is. So the podcaster that I was listening to, Andrea Burkhart, she said it was at this point that this witness's demeanor changed. At first, sometimes you have these witnesses, especially experts, they're trained to do this. The questioner is like in front of them. The jury's off to the side. They will turn their chair, and they'll listen to the question, and then they'll turn their chair and tell the jury what their answer is and explain their answer. And, it's a technique. And jurors like that. But as this cross-examination went on, he was no longer addressing the jurors, and his voice was barely audible at some point. It just kept getting lower and lower to the point where people couldn't even hear what he was saying. One of the things that he admits to saying during the interview was, you're going to drag your wife and daughter into this because you're effing bullheaded to get out in front of this? You're too effing bullheaded to get out in front of this? He's like, I didn't do it. Didn't do it. So one of the things he said was that on direct was witnesses had seen his car, or, he told Richard Allen, witnesses saw your car in the parking lot. He goes, well, I told you I went hiking on the ridge, So on cross-examination, he was asked, what witnesses saw his car? Who saw his car? Oh, Betsy Blair. Now, Betsy Blair is going to come back and testify on defense. She was not allowed to say this during her direct examination or cross-examination because this defense was shut down. But she's going to say that she saw a car parked in the old CPS lot that reminded her of a car her dad used to have, and it was an old Mercury Comet. That looks nothing like a Ford Focus. Nothing. No. So one of the interesting things that was brought out on Cross is, in this 5 years after committing these murders, he doesn't get rid of the gun. He doesn't get rid of the clothing. He doesn't get rid of the car. And he stays in town. And he's like this good citizen. He doesn't have any criminal record before the murders. Nothing after the murders. Doesn't get rid of. The only thing that's missing is this cell phone. Yeah. So then he was asked, do you believe that there was only one perpetrator? And he says, well, now I know that there was only one perpetrator, meaning at some point they were considering more than one perpetrator. And the reason he no longer thinks that is because he believes that if there's multiple people involved in a crime, one of them is usually going to is going to confess. And he goes, really? And what in your experience tells you that? And he's like, well, drug cases. Well, of course, drug cases, they want their next fix. They need to get out of the room, get their next fix. They'll tell you anything. No. Okay. So he believes that Libby was killed near, there's a tree at the crime scene. They're calling it the F tree. He believes that she was killed at this F tree, and then her body was placed in a different location. And he said, well, did you see any drag marks? Oh yeah, there were drag marks. Did you get any photos of the drag? No photos of the drag marks. They were very, very faint. You could barely see them. Well, wouldn't it make more sense for two people to have picked her up, her dead body up, and placed her where they found her? And I don't think he was going for that either. Yeah, the drag marks were hard to see. So he's like, how do you explain one person moving her? What was the other person doing? Like, this is what I don't understand. How this 5'4" Richard Allen abducted two teenage girls who were both 5'4", got them to go down a hill, into the creek, up this bank, killed them both. It just doesn't make sense that it was just one person. To me, it doesn't make sense that it's just one person. And he says, well, couldn't you have analyzed the height of this guy that you saw on the bridge? And he goes, yeah, we could have done that, but it would have cost $10,000. Do you know how much money they have spent investigating this case? Millions of dollars. But they didn't want to spend the $10,000 to figure out how tall the guy was. So eventually, in this cross, he acknowledged that there had been some mistakes, mostly typos, but we got those all corrected. And then he believes, similar to Officer Mullen, that those sticks that were found on the body, 3 on one body, 2 on the other, were to camouflage the bodies. They're sticks. You put 2 sticks on a girl that's 5'4" with blood all over her. How is that camouflaging her body? And he said, well, isn't it true you don't believe there was a pattern to how those bodies were positioned? And he's like, no pattern. They were positioned like this, 6 feet apart in a V, and the bullet was found between their feet. So he does acknowledge that they were probably moved and positioned that way. But he doesn't believe that's a pattern. No, the sticks were camouflage. The defense wants to bring in this odinism, that this was some sort of ritual in this odinism religion that was going on with these girls. Interesting Saturday for the jury. And I got that done in 30 minutes. I will tell you that the podcaster I listened to talked about it for 8 hours. 8 hours, because she had a lot of editorializing, interesting things to say, because she's a lawyer and I love to listen to that kind of stuff. But I just wanted to give you guys the high level things you need to know, high level. And that is that there's something fishy going on here. They thought this was a guy, and they come hell or high water, they were gonna break him and get him to say that he did it. Well, not in that interrogation. Nope. So I wish I could see the videos, and the interrogation videos and the video that Libby took, and we want to see it, but we can't. So today's Monday. I'm going to have this published tomorrow, Tuesday morning. So yes, I did 3 videos in the same pumpkin shirt. But make sure you haven't missed anything. And I've tried to keep the subject matter of each video sort of isolated so it makes sense. So if you missed one, you can certainly go back and catch up and watch what you've missed. All right, guys, now I got to go listen to what happened in today's court testimony. So have a wonderful day, Monday night and our Tuesday or whenever it is you're seeing this. And I will see you in the next video. I'll change my clothes for that video. How about that? All right. Take care, everybody. Bye.